without further ado, again, Lewis, feel free to introduce us to you, take it away, and I'm going to, again, put this link into the event page for everybody who's joined and would like to participate. Again, feel free to drop your name in the comments if you guys want to watch along, and I'll be monitoring those as well.
Hey David, how are you?
You know,
Thanks for having me. Honestly, I think it's incredible that you decided to have this idea. As soon as I saw your Facebook post, you were like, "Does anyone want to talk about money?" I was immediately excited. I think I hit you up within the hour, and you were like, "All right, fill out 17 Google Forms," and I was like, "Yeah, sure, all of them. You got 17 more." Um, and just a little bit about me. I don't think you know a lot about anything that happened before I got to UF, but
yeah.
um, when I was at UF, I became a different person and was just growing in a different way. But before that, I grew up on free lunch. I didn't really, everyone would come back from summer and say, "What did you do?" And people were talking about going on cruises and going to the Bahamas or Mexico. And I'm sitting here like, I played in the park a lot. We went to the beach a lot, and really kind of that's when it struck me that I was living life a little bit differently when I was younger.
Hmm.
And everyone around me, hardworking, blue collar jobs. And my mom always told me, work with your hand or work with your head so you don't have to work with your hands. And that kind of stuck. That was a good lesson there. So got to high school and dove into the AP classes, the ACE classes, debate club, did really well there. Got into UF somehow. I don't think the person I was in 2011 that got into UF would get in now. It's getting a lot tougher.
I feel like
Um,
they say it every year. But but you and me both got lucky to do that. But I want to pause and still rewind a little bit. So I want to reflect. There was a good quote that you said there. I think your mom said it. It was like work with your head so you don't have to work with your hands. And also uh, you mentioned really when you noticed that there was like a difference in life when you were talking about your summer experiences growing up. And so, how old were you when that was going on? Like, tell me more about that.
yeah, it had to have been like the fifth grade. We got in, and the assignment was something along the lines of tell us about your summer. And everyone just had a whole bunch of different exciting things they did. And I remember I was like, well, I rode my bike a lot. I
Hmm.
went to the park, played pickup games of basketball and football, and that's when I was just kind of like, all right, something's different here.
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so yeah, and then you got into UF obviously. So go Gators for everybody who,
Gators.
I think I have it right over here. Some football. I don't know what did you, when you're applying to school, like first off, college in general, right? What was that like? As far as like your going from, in the upbringing that you're talking about, your parents have education. Tell me about them, and then how did that impact your decision to go to school? Like, is what I'm really asking about, and tell me about that process.
Yeah, so or parent, I grew up with just my mom, and she did get a couple of degrees, but she got them in South America, right? So I think she had a good idea of what the value of education was and is, and kind of passed that down. Um, but had to go it alone, right? Like she didn't know what FAFSA was, she didn't know what the Common App was, she didn't know what the
Hmm.
SAT is. Um, had to figure kind of all of those out
Games of basketball
one by
and football.
one, asking those same friends that were telling me about their Caribbean vacations to help me on, the English portion of the SAT. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I get tutored twice a week." I'm like, "Cool. You want to teach you what they taught you? I'll help you with math."
Nice. No, I mean, I think that, it's that grit, that is there that, I think you kind of you're showing that, right? You just kind of went out and were able to make the experience that you had. So when you were going and looking at different universities, where did UF fall on your list, and how did you decide to ultimately go there?
So again, and I don't. When I talk to people about this now, I don't think that many kids that are 17, 16 applying to college think this way, but I really just looked at it as a return on investment from that early stage. It
Wow.
was I'm staying in Florida because out of state tuition to me is just not a smart move. And from the Florida schools that are available, I mean, there's really like three options that I wanted to go to. So I applied to UCF, UF, and FSU, and that was it. So there
Yep.
was no plan B or C. That's it. Staying in Florida, one of those three schools will do. So
Yeah. 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 And you know, same. I think that when it came to your top school was UF that one.
no, so then I looked at rankings. So I looked at what school had the best ranking for the program that I wanted to get into, and it flip-flopped from computer science to pre-law, sociology,
Hmm.
um, and eventually, I guess my risk adverseness landed me with accounting instead of sociology for pre-law, even though I wanted to be a lawyer. And it worked out. Accounting had the UF had the best accounting program, and I think it still does in the state. And that's where I went.
And so from a young age, you're already thinking back what you just mentioned was you're thinking of your ROI from day one, looking at UF. Like, did you have any, you know, were you an entrepreneurial type kid? Did you actually, think about money a lot when you were growing up too, in that context of like, hey, I want to make sure that when I'm getting, putting in, I'm going to be getting that much back out? Like, how did your mind work?
Yeah, so I think in middle school I was selling candy. Go to like the wholesale store, BJ's or Costco, and pick up, a box of 30 Snickers, Hershey's, Butterfingers, or whatever. Those are like $12 a box, and then you'd sell them for $1. I'm like, all right, 50%. That's pretty good. 100%, whatever it is. So did that for a little bit, and then I started tutoring because instead of selling 15 candy bars, I realized tutoring is very expensive, and people shell out for 15, 20, $25 an hour for some good math help. So I started doing that. I would post up in Barnes and Nobles and Oakwood Plaza when it used to be there, and just
Nice.
have like back-to-back appointments come in. Like between appointments, I'd get coffee and then be back at it. And it was really funny because, taking like AP classes, like kids from Broward College would come in and kids from Miami-Dade College would come in. And they're like, wait, you're my tutor? I was like 13, 14.
So good.
It was great.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Love it. I mean, again, the selling lunch, like there's little things like that in school and also tutoring is huge. And so ultimately, lead me to kind of at UF, your mindset on picking your career and then also diving into really what you're doing now. Like, tell me those experiences. Obviously, you were super involved at UF. You kind of went in with your head first and became Mr. Hall of Fame over here. I think your picture is still on one of those walls. And, you obviously were doing a lot of the stuff that I joined partially as well. I didn't get nearly as involved in the business school as you were, but we did a couple of different things together and kind of share that experience and again how that's kind of led you to doing what you're doing now. And again, you mentioned a little bit of what you studied, but kind of share a little bit more.
And this is where, people ask me if I believe in God, and I'll tell them I don't know. I'm pretty agnostic, but this is situations like this is where I think something out there is watching over me. So by happenstance, when I got to UF, a couple of friends that I grew up with also got in. So Becca's in the chat now, talking a lot, and I appreciate her support. But then one of Becca's friends that went to like St. Thomas Aquinas down here was named Megan. And, seen Megan a couple of times growing up in high school, but not a lot. And all of a sudden, Megan's joining clubs. So I'm like, hey, I should probably be doing that.
Hmm.
Megan's talking about FLA. She's the one who told me. She was like, oh yeah, there's this club for the top 100 sophomores or whatever it is. Like, you should apply. And I was like, okay, why not?
Nice.
It's like after a semester, we're taking classes, and that's really what started my journey was just good friends, right? You are the seven people you surround yourself with. In my case, the one person I surrounded myself with. Um, so she got me on the road, and then once I got into FLA and figured that out, I was just kind of like, all right, these are my people. Like these are the people I want to be around. These are the people getting good grades. These are the people making things happen in the university, and these are people that are going to teach me a different skill set that I didn't already have.
Right.
So,
Right.
because yeah,
Yeah, totally, totally. And then, with that, so what were some of the most, people right now, I think it's an interesting conversation of we spoke about when you were in high school looking at college as an ROI, experience, and then obviously now there's a huge discussion around if universities as they are today are still going to even be in existence later down the road, you know? What are your thoughts? And do you think, looking back, obviously I think we had you know, a pretty solid university experience, and we were able to get a lot more value than I'd say most students, generally speaking, because there's that dynamic. But yeah,
Yeah.
like what are your thoughts on that, and where do you see it's going, like upper, higher level education is going in the future?
It depends. I mean, honestly, it depends so much because college is an experience in and of itself. And I think what I remember from college is very little about the classes and very much about everything else.
Mm,
So, yeah, the classes were great. Yes, I have transcripts I can show you, and something resulted from it, right? Something stuck.
right.
But I remember, the trips to Ginny Springs, going out to restaurants or bars around the area, definitely homecoming parades, football games. So that aspect, I think, is so important that, if you look at kids now and what's going on with COVID, like they hate it. Like even during lockdown, even when school wasn't open, I think I had coworkers say like, yeah, my kids are back, in Tallahassee or Gainesville because their friends are there, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, totally, totally. And then, do you think, have you heard of like the uncollege movements or any of those things that are going on too? Um, I think, do you see those as potential viable things? Obviously, we know nothing of like, we're not working in higher ed to really have a real thought that's like, in the industry, but from our perspective, what do you feel is the future? Like, do you think that your kids are going to get a college education?
So I think education in and of itself is always important, right? Does it have to be the traditional college route? I don't think so. I think we can definitely have education be much more modular. I don't know why I need 120 credits and why 60 of those have to be in things that I don't care about or remember about. Distinctly, I remember taking a class in um, bugs and people because it counted as a biology credit, and I needed that. Ask me anything about bugs today. I couldn't tell you. You memorized a bunch of flashcards and you regurgitated on the test, and I think that part of the college system is should be done away with.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it definitely has to change.
Would you Yeah, I know a lot of people right now are talking about potentially even going to a 2-year degree, get the AA, and then transfer to a university as being a potentially more cost-effective way to go to school, and get that education. Would you, knowing, like, thinking about that perspective, would you still go to UF and do what you're doing, and do what you did, or would you think in your high school mentality, thinking about the ROI that you're already thinking about, back then, would you think you would do it again the same way, or no?
Honestly, if you're only thinking about return on investment, then yes, financially and numerically and measurably, that is a smart thing to do. But if you think about the college experience and the level of rigor and the change from community college to some place like the University of Florida, then what you saved in money is going to cost you in therapy because like it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I'd see it. Without naming any names, while I was at UF, I worked in the advising office, and
Yeah.
I would see transfer students come in and just have to have discussions about what's different here. I had a 4.0 at the institution that I was at, and I'm missing something.
Mm.
So no, I don't think so. If you're gonna go into a challenge in school, go in there first.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I think, yeah, that your time at the doing advising, I remember you in those polos. I think that's so interesting to have that perspective of really what's going on at the student level across, like, again, those types of transfers. Um,
yeah,
so, but yeah, and so UF obviously has a lot of different connections. UF was able to obviously provide you the, you know, and hopefully solid education, right? And at least I can say so for myself. And then we then transferred into the professional world, right? And so tell us about that transition, and then obviously like maybe lead up to where you are today and like your professional career journey and uh, how that's treated you.
Oh man, graduating from college was rough. So I was on the 5-year plan, so even that extra year didn't really help the transition.
You got a master's though,
Um,
right? In that 5 years.
yeah.
So yeah, I will put that
I
in
mean,
there, you know.
okay, yeah. I mean, it didn't. Yeah, 5-year route for a reason, not
Right,
not just because it took 5 years, but
right. Non-engineering.
yeah, not
Yeah.
engineering. But it felt like a cliff, right? So I don't, again, and this kind of links back to what I was saying earlier. Summers, I would play in the park. Then I dove into school, academics, involvement, whatever. Then you graduate, and there's a big gap of like, I don't know how to live life on my own without, clubs and activities and competitions. So going to working 8 hours a day to then not knowing what to do with the other 8 to 10 hours of my day, that was rough.
Mm,
Um, that was
yeah.
really rough.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you have an experience where, uh, did you first off, did you also intern in places too, like pre-graduation? And, I'm not sure if you had an experience similar to this. I'll share a little bit from my experience where one of my internships, doesn't matter where it was, but I remember talking about like the Cicerones and about preview. And I was like, these people don't care at all about any of these things that us at
Hmm.
UF like coveted. We were like,
Yeah.
wow, these people are the like coolest, most impressive, facey people, and I want to be like those people. And then I was had this internship, and I was just like, oh yeah, I'm a very involved to do this, that, the next thing. And then I was just like, wow, you guys don't care about so much that I cared about as a student. Did you have an experience like that as well?
Um, so generally, yes and no. So the thing about case competitions is I wouldn't
Mm,
talk about case competitions. I talk about where I traveled to, like, oh yeah, I love to travel. I've been to Thailand and Australia and Spain and whatever. So it was kind of an easy going conversation. And then they're like, oh, why'd you go? And it was like, oh, I did a competition for the business school.
cool.
So the activity part was a side aspect, and then the travel part, kind of saved me a little bit.
So your involvement though at school, like in University of Florida, was very beneficial and transferably it transferred well to like ultimately your profession.
Yeah, I mean, serendipity, man. It just, I would not have had the opportunity to travel as much as I did on my own.
Hmm.
Very thankful to the Havner School for allowing me to do that.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was easy to talk about because everyone talks about travel, and when you bring up major world cities, like everyone's like, oh yeah, I went to Thailand. What part did you go to? Or like, oh yeah, I've been to Australia. Did you go East Coast,
right.
West Coast?
I
Yeah,
think so. Ultimately, it's like, people can get involved. People can go about college in a couple different ways, right? They can probably like not get involved and just like have fun and like do their own thing, which is cool. Or you can actually get involved and like really understand the university at a couple of different levels, maybe your college, right, as you did, at like very intimately. And then there's also different types of involvement from what you're saying. Like again, like you were able to get into like a really strong professional involvement route where again other routes would not have potentially led to the types of careers that you have and that other people might want as far as like a business focused career, which is
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
No, I mean it. So and even the reason why I ended up there was kind of funny. I mean, as soon as I got into UF, I went to stick to what I know. So I joined their debate club at the University of Florida. I went on one competition. Um, we got second place, and that's when I realized I was like, I topped out, right? Like that's when you get to college and you get paired up with a random person, and you're like, all right, got second place at this competition. I mean, then you have a decision of like, do you want to devote your life to it and win like nationally? And I just
Right.
didn't want to do that. I was like, I'm again ROI. I I
Yeah.
got as much out of this activity as I can. Let's go figure out something else.
Yeah. You already won states, if I right, as in high school, right?
Yeah,
And then so it's like you already were doing that. I guess unless you wanted to become a politician, there isn't really much more to debate, you know?
yeah.
Like I think that's
I mean,
pretty much that. Totally. And then so, then going again, transitioning from, university into full-time role, like what was that experience? How was that application process? And then, you know, your job, like, and then your career, right? It was it a straight line, obviously, and or, what were those peaks and valleys?
come on, David, success is a straight line. Didn't you know that?
I mean, I know
Like,
that what I
yeah.
just did, I was born out of the womb and now I'm doing okay myself, so
That's exactly how it went. No.
yeah.
So another thing that those classmates that would go on Caribbean vacations and whatever else is that they're taught that I didn't have any access to is, take your child to work day for them. They'd go to a corporate setting and learn how people act in corporate America and learn how to talk politely. And, apparently saying this idea is dumb at work isn't the best way to go about something.
Yeah.
So you had to learn how to say phrases like, "Well, please walk me through your thought process. Have you considered perhaps this method, or do you know whether or not it might result in this inevitable failure?" Like, just learning how to talk corporate was a difficult one.
Interesting. There's a different kind of dialect that was you need to be able to kind of talk about things indirectly, but also get your point across. It's definitely interesting, especially if you're in a role that has to deal with a lot of clients, I assume, where you have other people that you're trying
Uh,
to, who are paying you to do work, and you need to be able to keep them feeling good, but also guiding them. So yeah, and then now tell us more about your current situation. Like, really, what are you? What is your day like, most days? How do you spend that? And then career profession wise, tell us more about how that's going.
so how do I spend my time?
Yeah.
Let's see. A lot of the time it's wake up maybe 30 minutes before I have to start working, work all day. I might step away for lunch or, take 30 minutes away from the screen. Then I'm wrapping up somewhere close to 6, 5:30, hit the gym, come back. Either I'm picking up food depending on how late I get to the gym or I'm making something. Usually it's pasta and like vegetarian meatballs lately because why not?
Yeah.
And
Nice.
lately, I think, yeah, you know about this, but I did buy a house,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that just gets
Congratulations.
whoa. Thanks. I'm a debt holder. People keep congratulating me.
You're very leveraged.
Yeah, I made a promise to pay a lot of money back. Congratulate me in 30 years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that gets just woven into the day. So those, I mean, literally, you don't know what you don't know, and then you don't know what you need to do until someone tells you they need it right then and there.
Hmm.
So that's been interesting.
Yeah. So I take it you're generally pretty structured when it comes to a lot of, time management, and then also budget wise, we're going to get into all that shortly. But yeah, so tell us like your general, like, where are you living and like what kind of role do you have at the company? Um, and yeah, and talk about, yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, so I'm in South Florida. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I work for Productivity. I'm a senior consultant in their business performance improvement practice, which can mean anything, right? So we can be helping you look at how to gain efficiency out of your employees. We can be looking to see how you can improve your cash collection cycle. Um, Whatever it might be that we're there for it. We might even be helping you digitize a heavily manual process, right? Just if your company is on paper and you want to get off paper and you want to be able to actually gain insights from everything that's on the paper, we can help stand it up from the ground up. Um, that's kind of what I'm doing now. And the firm as a whole really is technology consulting, risk consulting, internal audit, and it's a global firm. So
Cool.
that's where I'm working. Office is in close to Las Olas, and
Yeah.
I've been there for 5 years now. That's my first job out of college. I interned there right before I started, and it's been a good time so far.
Very cool. And I'll say as we enter this kind of portion of the conversation, I will reiterate for those of you guys that are able to watch us live, feel free to drop any comments, and if you have any specific questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll get to those hopefully, and again talk more about that if you have something specific you want to comment on or ask. And so as we really get to this section, so you've obviously had been, we've been preparing for this for a little bit now. You share with me a lot of the numbers that you have. Really, can we start talking about numbers a little bit more? Really, like take home pay wise, and obviously, we're going to get into how you break them down, but take home pay right now, and then obviously, like goals and plans for the future. Like, where do you see yourself going in the next 1, 3, 5 years?
Yeah, so I mean, take home pay right now annually is a little bit higher. I think the number I gave you was 74,000. So let's stick to 74,000 plus a 10% variable bonus. And the reason is because everything up until this point, that was the max salary that I had. So 74,000, and I only had that salary for about 2 years. Before that, it was 56, 59, 64, slowly kind
Hmm.
of trotting along. So
Yeah. And then I have so with that, right? You said that you interned there and then you went full time and then you've obviously stuck with it. I'm in a relatively similar position. Like, how was that kind of process of, you know, out here where I'm at, right? People job hop all the time, and there's where you see a
mhm.
lot of increase in salary and whatnot. I think that there's a lot to be said about, again, like the reasons why I'm here, like stick where I'm at is again, there's the culture, there's kind of an excitement around the role and the job. It's just like, where do you see? First off, do you have any thoughts on that and anything that is on like top of mind as far as, staying at the same job for an extended period of time where like our parents potentially, right, and like decades previous were like, lifers at different companies. There's still people where I'm at that have been here working where I'm at for like 20, 30 plus years. Some people are, remember almost when it was founded. And it was just like you get these people who were in a different kind of generation, different kind of thought process, I think, than where we're at right now. And kind of where is your mind at with like hopping jobs for increased pay versus kind of like what you and I both kind of have been doing this at this point?
So, I mean, it's kind of a weird situation. So, in consulting, you can definitely leave to make 40% more any day of the week. The trade-off with that is that you won't grow as quickly at the place that you go to work.
Hmm.
So, I'm not chasing money, right? I did chase doing the work that I wanted to do. So when I started at Productivity, it was in internal audit, and I did that for I don't know 4 years, and it was good. It was fun. I was learning a lot. You learn different industries, and then about 2 years ago, a little bit less, like October 2019, I started feeling like I didn't want to wake up in the morning to turn on my computer, and I was just done.
Hmm.
I was done doing what I was doing, and I looked at the future, and I was done trying to go to that path. I didn't want to manage what I was doing, right? Because the next step is manager, and I said, I don't want to manage this. Like, I don't
Right.
want to be a manager doing this because for me, it wasn't fun anymore. I wasn't learning, I wasn't growing. It was just, like a Viking in Valhalla, like wake up and do it again. Um,
Nice. Good analogy.
so I had, yeah. So I had conversations with the people who are in charge of me and worked it up the corporate chain of command, not saying, this job's stupid, but have you considered placing me in the business performance improvement practice? I think I could be a really good fit here.
Nice. Yeah, that
And
corporate, dialect.
yeah, exactly. And, eventually, it took a long time, but eventually they got me on a project. The project people are like, wow, you're new at this? I'm like, yeah. So then they got switched into the solution, and now this is my job. And I wake up and I'm, work is work. I can't say I'm excited to go, but I'm not dreading it. I don't not want to go anymore. And I stayed at Productivity because the job is the people are awesome.
Yep.
So I don't know how other places are, and I don't want to know. I know that when I ask for help from anybody at any level, they respond within 5 minutes. It's never, I don't have time for this. Um, I know if I ever need to ask someone for advice, people are there. And what more could you really ask for than having accountable coworkers that are also, fun to have side conversations with?
Cool. Totally. Totally. And where do you see that going? Where do you see yourself in the next, 1, 3, and 5 years ahead at this point then? I mean,
Hopefully,
yeah, totally.
hopefully a manager at Productivity, and then who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
dude, I could give this all up in a year from now and say, or 3 years from now, and say I want to go to Thailand and find myself in a monastery, and or I could stick it through for 3 more years and get to my next promotion and then flip it back, right? Then 3 years from now and go to Thailand, and then 5 years from now I'm in Thailand, or flip it back and forth,
Go on some yoga retreat. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go practice some Wim Hof breathing, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just put some ice baths and
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Totally, totally. And yeah, and so now what let's talk a little bit more about numbers, right? So,
Wait, wait,
um
wait. Before that, you
yeah.
actually do that though. You don't run like you run like Ironmans and crazy stuff, don't you?
Yeah, I do things that are interesting. Um Ice baths are not my best friend, but I feel like they're ice baths are intense, man. They get you going like no other. Like you're just there for all you need is like a minute or 2 minutes, and you're just completely refreshed. But realistically, uh, amazing to experience to heal your body and really uh experience something that is therapeutic and also regenerative as well, right?
Yeah.
Because uh, my last triathlon that I did, it's been a minute, but I did the Escape from Alcatraz, and
Oh,
there's longer story around that because the swim got canceled. It was a whole kerfuffle. I'm not going to get into that, but
yeah.
training for that was insane because I'm a Florida boy, I mean, I go to the water, I go to the beach, open water swims are like, it's a bathtub, so it's very easy. I love swimming in Florida water. But then out here, it's like, wow, I'm in the Bay Area. San Francisco is cold. It sucks. And I had to take cold showers, cold baths. I was putting myself through it for months to like be okay getting to acclimate to cold water sports, out here. And the irony of the whole experience of that, though, was that the swim got canceled the day of the race. So, all that months of training of cold and putting myself through, you know, the worst types of experiences. I am very much a hot person. Like, I am very much like, give me, I'd rather sweat with no clothes on than be bundled up with like 20,000 layers and still be like,
Yep.
just to be comfortable. Um, but yeah, I mean, triathlon stuff, I think to your point as well, there was an ROI experience too. I did an Ironman and it was like, okay, well, what else do I want to do? And I was like, all right, well, now it's just more of like that experiential type of racing, right? The Escape from Alcatraz. I'm gonna probably, I see that kind of progressing into a destination type experience. So I'll probably fly to wherever and race wherever around the world to have
Nice.
fun with that. That's kind of where I see that going. But yeah,
Yeah.
always happy to talk about triathlon anytime. I've been taking some time off from the sport, but as it starts getting warmer out here in the Bay Area, I'm gonna be, you know, going hard. And I already know it. I have my bikes over here. It's gonna be beautiful. I'm excited. But first time living in a city, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate you bringing
Like,
that up. Yeah, it's been
no,
a
I
yeah.
had to remember. I was like, wait, I know he does crazy stuff like this.
Yeah,
I'm like making fun of it, but you actually do it.
yeah. But again, it's kind of like, there are different methods to getting in shape, right? There and
Yeah.
then it's just like and then maintaining a certain type of physique. It's just like within
Yeah.
Ironman, within triathlon, it's like you have to be able to like consistently focus every day. Every week it has every day of the week has a purpose. It
Hmm.
was very interesting comparing what I used to do to what I'm doing now, which is not much. And like as far as athleticism is concerned, and it was just like, okay, well, like like Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be my run days, and then the in between like Tuesday, Thursday would be like swim days, and then like I'd have one rest day, but my rest day would be like the yoga day, and I would like do P90X yoga, and like that would be it. So like every day had like a purpose that if I didn't do that one thing, I failed the day,
Oh
and
man.
then yeah, I failed the day, and then I wouldn't go to sleep until I did that thing and hit that
Oh my
goal.
God.
Yeah, so it's like
All
if I
right.
had to run 6 miles, like I wouldn't go to sleep until I ran 6 miles because I that was the thing I needed to do
Yeah.
that day. Anyway, it was just a whole mental mindset. I don't know if I would do the same thing exactly how I used to do it before. One thing
Yeah.
that I did not implement into my whole, workout routine outside of the yoga was like actual stretching and like taking care of my body outside but yeah, that's a whole well, it's a whole other
All right.
conversation. Yeah,
Different
because
podcast.
yeah. I mean, I'm healthy, but it's just that's the one my biggest thing about getting back into the sport that I'm very hesitant about. That I need to be taking better care of myself. Um,
Yeah.
you know. So, but
All
yeah,
right.
there's body. Yeah. So totally
Numbers.
numbers now.
Literally.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. There's what do you value a lot of like health or wealth, right? Now, I value both, I
Well,
think,
yeah, ¿por qué no los dos?
so yeah,
Why not both?
exactly. Entiendo un poquito. Um, so yeah, I think, I'm gonna start to share your financials that you've shared with me previously, and we're gonna kind of dive a little bit into those. And I'd love to have you walk us through some of that. And so let me go and do this. I will open your financials up. This is the first time that everybody's seeing this, and so as I pull this up, again, we have a lot that you guys are going to be looking at right now. This is going to be the format that we're going to be sharing these numbers through. And so, we have, his monthly budget in the center, and then around the edges, we basically have different categories of expenditures, along with, in the top right, a category and percent of total, that list that you're able to, look at and potentially compare against if you're, thinking introspectively about your own habits and experiences. And, this is, I will say Lewis does an amazing job, by the way, of accounting and, obviously uh, reflecting internally about your own spending. And so this is throughout the whole average throughout the whole year, which is fascinating, not just one specific month. So you're getting a pretty solid look into really how you spend your money right here. And so yeah, let's dive right into that. If you want to walk us through a little bit more, we'll go there.
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, I know someone's gonna ask or wonder. He said he makes 74,000. 4631 times 12 is not 74,000. So let's let's start there. This is net of tax. So my personal view, and when I gave this to you, David, I took out the taxes withheld from my paycheck because if I don't see the money, then it's not really my money, right? So the
Understood.
4630 monthly, that's what it comes out to. My take home pay is around 60,000, 60,200. Of that, then we start working backwards, right? So savings is probably the biggest chunk of that budget, and the savings is automatic. 1,500 a month that goes into one account that is a high yield savings account called Barclays, and 750 per paycheck goes into that account. That is just cash savings. Then you have your investments, which I also consider savings, and that those investments are a couple. So you have a 401k that I contribute to, you have an HSA that I contribute to, and you also have a Roth IRA that I contribute to. So those are my three main areas that I put money for investments. So as you can see, a little bit more than half of my money is either being saved in cash or invested. I think at this point in time, my savings rate from my paycheck was like 52, 53%, um, which people are like, wow, you're so frugal or you're so cheap or like, that's insane. How do you do that? Um, well, a couple of ways, right? When I first started working, making, mid 50s, I had $27,000 of student loan debt, and it was my mission to pay that off as quickly as possible. So basically, what I did was kind of what I'm still doing. One paycheck would go to the loans, the other paycheck would go to living. And then the magic part is I was able to maintain that over 5 years.
Hmm.
So one paycheck is still going, towards myself now instead of the student debt, and I live off of the other paycheck, right? And when I say one paycheck, other paycheck, I mean for the month, right? So two
Right.
paychecks a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, then we get to rent, 842. That's half. I've always had a roommate, either, my mom and my sister were my roommates at some point. I lived with my family. Really hard to date when you mention that, by the way, in Miami. People look at you funny.
With a
But
roommate?
no, when you say you still live with your parents.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I was about to say, I was like, wait, let me make sure I clarified that. Yeah.
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 No, no, no. Then had a roommate for a little while, still have a roommate. That figure has gone up a little bit. I'm actually paying like 950 now, but that's then the utilities get mushed into that. I don't pay utilities anymore. So keep living expenses low.
Yeah.
I don't live in glamorous places. That rent in South Florida, people are probably going to ask, where do you live for that amount of money? In Pembroke Pines, in a one bedroom with another person. That's what I was doing for a little while. Now I'm paying 950 and I live near Fort Lauderdale Airport with a roommate, and that's just it. The units out here rent for about 2,000, so I'm close to paying for half of what it is, but it's because I don't want a studio in Las Olas or a studio in South Beach or a studio's right on Fort Lauderdale Beach that I'm able to pay rent like that, right?
Hmm.
Gotta make a little bit of sacrifice, live with someone else, which my roommate's great. So I just know that in general, roommates might not be the best, but my roommate's great. I love living here, and that's how you keep your rent low
Yep.
in a place like Miami.
Yep. 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 Totally. And I think it's fascinating. So we have a lot that's going on here as well that I want to kind of break into. But first, again, you mentioned a lot of awesome notes around how you allocate each paycheck and your mental mindset around how one paycheck, was to help pay down loans and was the, sustenance, and then the other paycheck was your like to live and have your own fun with and other stuff. Um,
Mhm.
you also, I forgot what the name of it is, but you basically were like there's a certain name for the kind of accounting that or kind of spending that you have when it comes into your account, but it's already all allocated everywhere else.
Oh yeah, so I forgot the name that I gave it to you. It's something like the anti-budget
Yeah,
methodology is what I think it's called. The
yeah,
anti-budget.
yeah. And so with that, a lot of that theory, right, is just making sure that the minute it hits your account, it's almost like it never even was there, right? That's where the high savings rate and the investment rate, how you broke it down into retirement, HSA, and other accounts, right? That's where all
Yeah.
that kind of stems from. Um, what is the with the savings percentage, right? Like being such a large percent of your account here. Um, what do you think is like that biggest motivator to make sure that you're saving that in cash and making sure like that is what it is versus one of the other expenditures that could again go towards that nice studio in Las Olas or some potential other more maybe even riskier investments.
Um, so the cash stack started first to get an emergency fund, right? Like that was my priority. They tell you should have 3 to 6 months of expenses and cash on you on hand at any times. I wanted a year. I wanted a full year of living expenses on me at any time. So that's when the emergency fund hit like 15,000. And then I was like, oh man, I have a lot of money here. I can probably buy a house soon. So I was, gonna start maxing out the 401k, but I was like, nah, I can probably buy a house soon, even in South Florida, even by myself. So I kept it. And then, luck is where opportunity meets preparedness. This past December, I love this story because it's kind of how I bought my car too. I was swiping on Zillow and I saw a house in the community I live in now that was up, lowest priced unit. in the past like 6 to 8 months, and it just happened that it was in between Christmas and New Year's, so no one was looking at Zillow. So my roommate's a realtor. I was like, no, we need to put an offer on this now. This is the right price, the right space, the right location. This community is great. Like, let's do it. Offer gets accepted on the 31st and get into the home buying process. But um, on top of the house, I also needed a car. I think that I forgot to mention you don't. So that car number there
Yeah, the
isn't.
262.
Yeah, that isn't a car payment. That
Okay.
is insurance. That's gas. That is oil changes. That is not a car payment.
So you own your car
So
outright?
yeah.
Nice.
So part of the savings thing was to buy a car cash because that's what good common sense says. And I did that. So that's another reason why I had a high cash stack at all times is because first I needed a car because I was driving a 2004 Nissan Sentra with 204,000 miles, two working door handles, and only three working windows. And when I drove down I-95, the steering wheel used to shake. And I would
Nice.
show up to client sites in this car and not be able to, go out to lunch with them. I was like, all right, who's driving to lunch? Because it ain't me.
Yeah.
um, Her nickname was Beats Walkin'. That was
Beats
that was
walking.
the
That's so funny. Nice.
that was
Beats
the
walking.
Center's nickname.
Yeah.
Uh,
A distant relative of Christopher Walken. And
No. Yeah,
but
it's just so that's why I always have high cash. I mean, you asked me why I have high cash stock. That's why I always need to buy something expensive. First it was the car, then it was the house, and now the cash stack is pretty low because the house. So I need to rebuild it again so I can have 12 months of these new higher expenses that I don't even know what they actually are with
mm,
this house because I haven't even lived
yeah.
in the house yet.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll definitely get dive into that in a minute too. Because I'm excited to talk to you about your real estate endeavors. Obviously, we want to go into some of the details that we went into, but we'll definitely talk about the decisions around buying the house and how you went about that specifically. With the investment side of things, right? So you mentioned that you have three different primary accounts that you put this roughly $1,000, maybe a little bit more into a month. Um, and again, if I remember correctly, you had a retirement account, which was that a Roth 401k?
So there's two retirements. So the
Okay,
401k is with Fidelity, that's through my employer. Then there's a Roth IRA, which is with Vanguard.
okay. And then so you have a regular 401k, then you have a Roth 401k, and then right,
It's a Roth IRA.
Roth IRA, sorry,
Yes. Okay.
and then you also had a HSA, and you have another, just like an other investment account. How do you
I
describe that
don't
other one?
I don't think I have an
Do
other
you have one? All right. So
investment
then, yeah, I want
account.
to make sure that I knew what I
So
was talking about, at least that maybe I misheard before. So again, you have those three accounts then.
yeah, let me
Um,
recap those because I think some of our viewers might not know. So the
yeah,
401k is just the employer. Then the HSA is the health savings account that you get for having a high deductible, insurance plan. And the only reason I really have it is because if I contribute to it, my employer also matches
cool.
50 cents on the dollar up to $1,000 every year. So that's free money.
Yeah.
And then the Roth IRA, which is really just an individual retirement account with Vanguard that anyone can open at any time as long as you have a job.
Does your employer match any of the 401k contributions as
They
well?
they do.
Nice.
I don't. I think my 401k matches 3%. I hope so.
Yeah.
3%.
Yeah.
They changed it recently, so I think it was two and now it's three. Um, so as long as I contribute 6%, they match half of it, which is 3%. That's what I think it is right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, yeah, totally. I mean, and then that's, um, I think what I'd like to also kind of go into is we have the regular 401k and then you have your Roth IRA. And so maybe explain a little bit about both of those and why you think to use both of those specifically.
So 401k isn't a piggy bank, right? I know people can take loans against them, but for me, it's not a piggy bank. So 401k is pre-tax money that I intend to use after age 59 and a half. That that is the 401k. The Roth IRA, I personally have it because it's post-tax money, right? Uh, Not the best mathematical decision because I think if you really do the math, if you invest all of your money in the 401k and withdraw it early and take the penalty like at age 50, you still make more money because you were able to contribute pre-tax dollars. So you have more money invested in the market in total. So after you account for the penalty and
Mm,
taxes, you're still okay. The reason I have it is because the Roth IRA can be a piggy bank. So if I ever have a real emergency, I can always withdraw the principal without any penalty. Like the principal is mine. I already paid taxes on mine. It can be a piggy bank. So I have layers of safety net, right? So high cash balance, Roth IRA, and let's hope I don't get to 401k, right?
mhm.
So that's kind of why I have it.
Yeah. And then your HSA is really unique. I love HSAs. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so tell me about when you first learned about that and what that was like. And have you? I assume hopefully you have never needed to use it, obviously. But yeah, tell me more about HSAs.
So HSA is great and the health savings account is awesome. It is probably one of the most tax advantaged things that exist in the US. Money goes in pre-tax, money grows pre-tax, and as long as you use it on medical expenses, which is pretty widely defined, either for yourself or your children, then it never gets taxed. So it's just tax-free money that can grow in the market, and the growth isn't taxed if you use it for qualified medical expenses. Here's the beautiful part about it, that medical expenses are broadly defined. So yes, I have used it. I used to wear glasses, now I don't, and I
Nice.
could pay for that with my HSA. A little bit of vanity, but really it's because I was starting to scuba dive, and I don't know if you've ever
Yep.
scuba been underwater with contact lenses. It is
No.
atrocious.
Yeah. I took
It
the
is.
UF scuba diving class. That's how I got certified, and
Yeah,
it was one of the best classes I ever took at university. So one of the
yeah.
extremely useful.
That's amazing. I wanted to take that class, never had the time, so I did it as an adult. But scuba diving with contacts is just atrocious. So,
Yeah. No, understood. Understood.
um,
And so yeah, and so you're able to pay for, I guess, the contacts and everything you needed through your HSA,
yeah.
which
So
is huge.
it's awesome.
You know, totally,
Absolutely great. And
totally.
the thing is, some people say, well, I'm healthy, I'll never need it, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you will. Your average American goes through two major surgeries in their lifetime. You might not need it, but 60-year-olds, you might need it. If you are planning on having children, uh, children are going to need it, even if it's just their vaccinations, regardless of whether or not you're actually going to get them vaccinated. I'm not here to have a debate about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Just your children will need medicine at some point, and you can use it for them.
Okay, so
Uh,
you can use HSAs to even pay for a child's, yeah, your child's healthcare.
yeah,
Fascinating.
double check, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, interesting. Very
So
cool.
that money will get used at some point.
Right, right. And yeah, again, I love HSAs. I think it doesn't cover like if you were to try to be like a get a chiropractic appointment or something that's like, a little bit still on the edge of, medical discussions, but yeah, I think it covers almost everything else though. And it's really cool, really great. HSAs are awesome. And so, your accounts here are pretty awesome. Again, it's great that you're able to invest this much month over month. Have you considered looking into other types of accounts like the Robinhoods, right? We are in this time where, everybody's a trader now. Everybody's able to buy fractional shares and everything's going to the moon and back. There's also obviously like referencing cryptocurrencies and referencing all the above, right? What are your thoughts on all those other accounts and ways to go about using the money?
I wish I had a slight gambling fund to do some speculative trading, but strictly as gambling. And that's my thoughts on that. I really do see all of this as gambling. I do not gamble with my money. I do not treat the casino like a stock market. I'm not trying to YOLO on GME or AMC or Nokia. And yeah, you can make a lot of money that way, very similarly to how you can make money in a casino. Like, why don't you go YOLO $30,000 on black and double it?
Yeah.
And um, I just don't do that. So my view on investing is long-term passive investing, all in on VTSAX, Vanguard index funds, and that's it. I mean, statistically, if you're putting your money in the stock market for less than 5 years, it's a gamble. And it could be up or down, but over the 5 year period, typically it's an upward trend, right?
Yeah.
So that's really my view. Crypto, I still don't know, and I don't want to sound ignorant because I really haven't spent much time researching it. I can you give me a reason why Bitcoin's worth so much money besides speculation?
Yeah. Have you in short, because people don't want to pay it, but have
But
you
that's
ever
speculation.
totally so have you ever read the book Sapiens by uh Noah Yuval, I forgot.
Yeah, I have.
That chapter on money, I read that while I think it was my sophomore junior year at UF, and the chapter on money was what I was going through the time of like one of the previous major Bitcoin moments where that was just like I bought Bitcoin back at like, back then when I say I bought, I didn't go all in. It was just like I had fun with I gambled in your words, right? I had a friend who was able to buy Bitcoin really on my behalf. He was like my broker for it was like at $200.
Wow.
And it was just like this random tech thing that I had no idea about. But I had no idea, but to your point, and I read that book on that chapter in particular on money and how money as we know it today is, how we use it. And it blew my mind, and that was the foundation of my thoughts around, a dollar and just currencies and exchange rates. And I had a roommate who was really big into forex and and cryptocurrencies. But as far as the background technologies around cryptocurrencies, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a master and know it all around that either.
Right.
But I do believe that I already can see people are taking, there's these risks, but I think as the more broadly it gets accepted, the more these coins and these different like technologies are going to be in the mainstream and actually have the value that we're kind of seeing the assumed value today, the speculative value that we have right now. I think that there's different, and I'm looking forward to hopefully through this show talking with people who are excited about this space and are able to give us like a really intricate description of it all. But right now, I
Yeah.
think so many people are FOMOing into it, which is also driving the number up that much more. But I do think that there is a core value there um, at some level, but I also don't know enough around how it's going to be used in the future. Everybody says it's, 100, like by the end of X number of years, you're only going to be a finite number, and
Hmm.
whatever, sure. But I mean, there are a finite number of these like glasses in my kitchen too that I am able to use, and you know, I don't know. It's something
So
that, yeah.
yes, there's a finite number of Bitcoin, but they're infinitely divisible, right? So it's not really a finite number. I mean, you can always own a smaller and smaller share. My the thing that I can't wrap my head around with Bitcoin is one, the risk of supercomputing, right? So it is Bitcoin, to my understanding, is secure now, but as technology starts getting better and better and better, like the security and protection around Bitcoin is probably going to fall, right? So to me, I think the blockchain in and of itself is a good technology, just like the internet is a great
Mm.
technology. I do not understand why that makes Bitcoin worth $50,000. That's the part, like the technology is great and it could be done for free, you can use blockchain to validate contracts and do whatever else. You can get all these benefits on a free peer-to-peer blockchain where there's no reward for the underlying, function
Hmm.
that's being performed. Um, the second thing that I think is the only thing that gives Bitcoin value is people willing to buy and sell it. Whereas I don't think anything else like that really exists in the world, like in the physical world. Like, even if you buy a Picasso, right? Why is a Picasso worth so much money? Because people are willing to pay it. But even if people weren't willing to pay it, it'd still be worth the paper it was drawn on, right?
Right.
There's
Right.
something of value there.
Right.
Um, the only out that I see for Bitcoin is if it does get adopted as a currency. If it overtakes currency and is
Right.
transacted as a currency, then yeah, because all currencies are just based off of, I'm willing to give you something in the physical or digital world for this thing that other people are willing to accept in a similar manner. It's just an exchange of value.
Right.
But that's its only out. And if that's its out, I'm highly concerned, right? Because we already have people that are hoarding Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin becomes, like a worldwide currency or a way to exchange, you already have people that are going to be trillionaires or quadrillionaires, depending on what the value of one coin is in the future, right? Which is wild. So if currency is its only out, and that's the way it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to be Ethereum. I think it's going to be something that's centralized, much the way that currency is centralized now, right? To a nation.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. That's fascinating perspective. I think, um, it's, we see obviously Tesla's making the news for a number of reasons, but obviously they came out I think like a week or two ago about saying how they're going to accept Bitcoin as to purchase their cars,
mhm.
and you're shaking your head. You're like,
No, I'm saying like, yeah, it's
yeah,
good for now.
totally, totally. And there are some people taking salaries apparently in Bitcoin. There's some sports people doing that.
NFL players, yeah,
Yeah,
I saw that.
yeah. Um, so I mean, I think that there's an effort to trying to get this to be more normalized, um, in a lot of like areas of society. Though it's funny, I'll bring up Tesla again, but in their terms of service, it was very interesting on how they wrote, if the value of Bitcoin depreciates or goes up, like we'll give you. It was basically like if it goes up, then you know whatever it was always best for Tesla in a sense. Like if it went
Okay.
down, then we'd pay you in your exact Bitcoin, but if it went up, then we'd pay you in cash, whatever that equivalent time like was at the time of purchase. Um, but but yeah, I think the thing that fascinates me most about crypto, and we'll move on in a second from this, but is
Yeah.
just how there's so many coins, and each coin has its own model of like what it's trying to do in the foreseeable future of technology. And I think that if we are able to transition as a society into those types of modes uh, of transactions and base our society along this blockchain, then those are going to be seen, and that would be the out there. But if that kind of limits itself, then it's a self-limiting kind of experience. Um, that it can only hurt itself if those things don't come to fruition. But it's also my thoughts being in the gaming space and having these posters behind me over here is, virtual reality has been around since like I think late 70s, early 80s at least, but only now are they becoming more mainstream where it's like, oh yeah, like my friends have a Oculus or whatever. My friend has a Vive and whatever. And it's just now people are becoming more adjusted to it. But again, it's going to be another 5, 10 X plus years before it's everybody has it. We have the enthusiasts, right? Just in tech, we have the tech enthusiasts that have all the different headsets, and then
Mhm.
now as it's becoming more affordable into these like $200 Oculus Quest whatever's, now it's kind of funneling down. I think cryptocurrencies, if it does see some realization of the value that it has right now, it will ultimately be in everybody's wallet of sorts, where everybody will have some as it potentially fades out some of the current uh, uh, I forgot the term I'm looking for, is like the monetary system we have today. Um,
I mean,
yeah.
I think you're 100% right. Adoption would be slow and hard. You just have to think of how many things would change and how you would have to change with it. And especially the fact that it's deflationary, right? So the only way that Bitcoin can become a success is if people learn to use scientific notation and are good at
And an X
it.
to the whatever's, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that is so interesting.
and are
That's
good
very
at it.
interesting. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you have to have banks accepting this and whatever it is, 0.05 times 10 to the negative 17 or whatever it is.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you have to be able to translate that to some sort of real
It's
value,
hilarious.
right?
Yeah,
The only reason people are hyped about Bitcoin is because it's worth so much real money. That's
right,
it.
right.
Literally, they're using it as a
Interesting.
rocket ship to convert back to fiat currency and of the world that they live in.
Yeah,
There's again, to
fiat
me,
currency. Yeah,
nothing
that's what I was looking for.
nothing exciting
Hmm.
about Bitcoin. Had I wish I bought some in 2011 when I knew about it, yes.
Yeah,
Um, am
yeah.
I looking to buy some now? No. Could it still go up? Sure.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to gamble on it.
Yeah, yeah. So no, I think, and I think that, you definitely are like the very much, yeah, that person that continues to, you're like a slow and steady wins the race mentality of, look,
Uh,
I know this is proven to work, right? If I follow this method, it's definitely gonna,
yeah,
get you where you want to go effectively.
I think you just summarized me in a sentence. Yeah, it's the saver's investor's path to wealth. Could I think I am going to start a little gambling fund on the side, maybe like 5,000 to drop into some speculative stuff and see where it goes. Um, but that again, that's my gambling fund. My main strategy, savers investors path. I think I read a Forbes article or like some article that was saying, the top 5 ways to become super wealthy or a millionaire. And like the first one's like be born into it. The second one's like marry into it. And the third one was savers investors path to wealth. Just start investing as soon and as early as possible. And I think I don't think enough people realize this, but if you put $50,000 into the market today and you wait for 40 years, literally just don't touch it, just one index fund, just $50,000 and don't touch it. You wait 40 years and you're at, over $700,000 in that 40-year time frame.
Yeah.
So to invest $50,000, if you invest, $1,000 a month when you start working, 24 months, 2 years, you have 24,000. In 4 years, you have 50,000. Graduate college, you're now 25, right? Graduate college 21, you're 25, you have the 50,000 in there. 40 years, you're 65. Now imagine what happens if you save more than $1,000 in those months. Now you have 1.5 million, right? So if you
Hmm.
save double, you save $2,000 a month, then you're getting $1.5 million in your bank account at the end of the day. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not tone deaf. I do understand that's not possible
Feasible for that.
for a
Yeah.
lot of people. Um, but I'm talking for people that we went to school with in the business school. I think a lot of them could do it, but then I think some of them choose to live on South Beach. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yes. Brickle.
so
Yes.
yeah. So
You're like, that hit a
it's
spot.
just a wild. No, it's just a wild thought. It's just
Yeah.
if you do this, you will be a millionaire in your lifetime. Or you
So,
can choose to live in Brickell for 3 months. Like,
yeah, 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 totally, totally. I will say another thing that I don't know if it was a joke or not, but one of my friends posted like how a millionaire uh spends his day. It was like wakes up at like 5:30 a.m., does all the, work, early morning workout, meditation, whatever, and then it was just like then talks to his dad who owns a Fortune 500 company and then goes back goes back to sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you mentioned uh, a lot of index funds, obviously, and then I go based off your investments, obviously you're very much index heavy, right? How do
Mhm.
you decide what index funds to invest in? How did you, at least at the start? How often do you change that up? And I'll start with that.
So Vanguard, I just honestly, I think I'm still in their target fund, but I do need to switch that over for work. Um, since I don't think VTSAX is an option, it's an amalgamation of large cap US, mid cap US, and small cap. So you have to buy three different indexes to mirror the whole market, and I just buy them in equal amounts. Um, the HSA isn't all large cap though. That's my YOLO fund because it's the one that I put the least amount of money in, and it'll probably get the best return. The 401k is where I have the most amount of money in, and that one is pretty evenly divided. I don't think I have any bonds on that one. If I do, it's about 10% US bonds, like US Treasury bonds.
Hmm.
And I am pretty heavily invested in foreign markets. So foreign market index fund is another thing that I'm doing just to avoid home territory bias. So especially with what's going on in the market right now, I'm kind of not okay with it. So I don't want to be the next Japan, right? Japan stock market hits all-time high, crashes, never recovers. Like that is something that is possible to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
How long ago did that happen with Japan?
not sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just
Uh,
like, I didn't know too much about Japan's stock market crash and how they've been unable to recover. So that's just new.
yeah, it was just I mean they didn't recover because it was unsustainable, right? So it's not. I'm sure they recovered somewhat, but not the typical recovery, which is an upward slope. Um, so that might happen in the U.S. So I'm trying to avoid home country bias and got 35% or 30% of the portfolio in foreign index funds, and that's where I put my money.
Yeah,
Just and the
yeah.
reason I do it is because statistics. I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, right? So um, look at ROI for college, look at good job opportunity, and just look at what the numbers tell you. And the reason I don't gamble and I don't pick stocks is because a ton of people last year were saying, I've made, 200% of my portfolio. I bought Disney and Carnival and whatever. And I was like, all right, now do that again for 40 years. Keep playing
Right,
your game for
right.
40 years, which is the retirement horizon, and let's see who wins.
Yeah,
Congrats. I did think about it. I did think about, investing in those chip stocks when the market went down in March and I was staring at it. I was like, the cruise ships aren't going to go anywhere. Even if Royal Caribbean goes bankrupt, the ships are going to go somewhere and someone's going to take over the company, right?
yeah,
Same with Spirit, same with whoever else. Like the company will continue. And I didn't do it. I
yeah.
just because I don't gamble.
Yeah, totally. I respect the steadfast mindset that you have. Um, I did gamble a little bit. It's been fine. It's been good. But yeah, totally. I lean more towards the more conservative side as well, where it's just like, yeah, this is very intense. Um, but totally. And then with do you ever go in and ever I get you said you're in your target date fund for your Vanguard or for
Hmm.
your things. Do you ever go in? I assume if you're only in one fund, you never really need to rebalance because it's all 100% that fund. Um,
Yeah.
have you ever needed to go in and actually change anything from those since you started?
Yeah. So I think for the 401k, I was in a target fund and it had really high expense ratios. So I don't know, 2, 3 years ago, I had to go in and figure out index fund options that we had. And yeah, so I had to, for the 401k, it's very limited.
Was
And I
the
think we're in like Fidelity version of index funds that have higher expense ratios, which I'm annoyed about, but what can I do?
were the target dates your like the default ones that they put you into immediately?
2060, 40
Yeah,
years or so, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like you basically like they gave you Like when you put your money, when you signed up with them through the company, and you had your meetings with them, they just automatically defaulted you to your target date funds.
Yeah,
And
and be careful with those. Those have high expense ratios, and
right,
expense ratios are killer.
yeah.
Um,
Even if it's just like,
that
quarter percent, whatever percentage it might be, like again, percents, quarter percent, but again, over a lifetime, right? It adds up.
yeah. So I think I did this with my friend the other day because they were trying to tell me something about like an impact fund, which is basically an index fund, but you take out away all the companies that, sell weapons and like
Mm.
do terrible things.
It was like
And I
a,
was just kind of,
you go.
yeah, no. It's just kind of like, what's the return on that? It was like, oh, it's like a quarter to half a percent less than the regular market. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm sticking with the whole
Cause
market.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's one of those that you'll invest in again if people hold like very strong beliefs on one of them, sure. Like again, it's just one of those that you justify. I don't specifically. I know that some places like Wealthfront Betterment and other robo like people offer like green funds or funds that are again very much
mhm.
like cause-based funds that will avoid certain organizations or certain companies for sure. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to look at those average returns over time and also specifically again the expense ratios to make sure that you know like again unless you really believe very strongly in each of these causes, like it just that value conversation is very personal. Um, you know,
I I I empathize with people that want to make a statement that way, and I just logically ask them, do they pay taxes? They don't get a choice where their taxes go, and a lot of it goes to war and destruction anyway. So, I'm going to be morally gray by paying taxes. I might as well get that quarter and half a percent return on my investment. Am I buying their stock directly? No. But am I going to go out of my way to avoid them? I'm not doing that either.
yeah, and you are living in Florida, so you don't have that other, huge tax of based off the income or the state tax. So at least there's that. Um, but whereas us
That
in
is a choice.
yeah, yeah, versus us in
That's a choice I
California,
made.
yeah, versus us in California, they're just like, all right, well there goes like a huge percentage of my income based for taxes. But yeah, and then the other obvious big major investment that you have that isn't reflected in this image right here is your real estate, right? Your mortgage and your uh yeah, paying down your mortgage now. I'm ready to talk about like we can definitely talk about that. I also have your spreadsheet up and open that has your personal P&L if you also want to go through that before we transition to your uh, mortgage conversation and your real estate discussion.
Yeah, I mean, you can show personal P&L. It's pretty much the pie chart we just went through. Um,
Yeah, I'll
if
share
not, we
that.
can go to the balance sheet. That one works too,
Yeah, let
because
me
that one has,
yeah, let me open this up here and
but yeah, I don't know.
yeah, up to you, whatever. So right now, again, these numbers that I'm sharing here, um,
Hmm.
on the spending breakdown, again, were the numbers that might be a little bit small. Let me see if I can try not to mess up any of the other things I have
Oh,
going on my computer. But anyway,
yeah,
these
so
numbers are what that was broken down into. We can go into the personal about like the balance sheet if you'd like as well.
I think that was the chart area, and
Yep.
honestly, the if you have the chart up, the one key takeaway that anyone that's listening, um, this is how I manage my money before I spend it. So it was really funny when David, you asked me to tell you what I actually spent, and I compared it to kind of like I pulled the roll from Mint, and it
Yep.
pretty much lined up. Like one month's a little bit higher, one month's a little bit lower. But what I do is I have at this point like 7 bank accounts, and all of this money goes different locations every paycheck because what I do is fifth grade math, but it requires a PhD in psychology to stick to it. If all of this money went into one checking account every month or every paycheck, I would not I would not be able to do what I do. So
So so if you have so many bank accounts, do you have any favorite bank accounts? Any favorite banks you work with? Anything that's, you would recommend based off that, or you just have different, when you say different bank accounts, is it all with the same bank, or do you have um different actual banks you are working with as well?
yeah, there's different banks. So Wells Fargo is my operating account. They hold my mortgage. That is where I bank mostly. I don't have any money in Wells Fargo. So if you're gonna try to hack them, the best that you can do is pay my mortgage for me. It's an operating account.
Yeah,
So I keep
yeah.
very little money in there and that's it. It's what I pay off, you know, gas, groceries, utilities, very little money in there.
Hmm.
And what goes in there immediately comes out. So every paycheck, you'll have half the mortgage payment, and then the next month, as soon as the other half comes in, oh, I'm on bi-weekly mortgage payments too. So actually,
Oh,
every
wow.
paycheck you get half a mortgage payment, and then it goes immediately out the next Monday. So
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. That is that anti-budget situation that you're talking about, though, right? So in real
yeah,
time, really,
literally,
um, which is
literally, I
fascinating.
just don't think about it. Money
Yeah,
goes in, money goes out. I know what I'm spending, I know what I'm going, and then the very little amount, the $600 that goes into my checking account, that's what I have fun with. That's what
that's
I'm
your
like,
play
okay,
money. Yeah.
yeah, I can go get a smoothie or get a really nice smoothie. Or
Get it
in
really
Miami,
nice.
get one cocktail at a bar. That's $600. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You pay cover at live or something that, is
Yeah,
that's your exactly.
exactly.
Exactly. And then yeah, with the breakdown, right, in the balance sheet, we have your
Hmm.
personal P&L statement for the year, which is awesome, and you have your monthly broken down into it, which is again what was um, shown here. I'm gonna take that off so everybody sees it. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, is there something specific that you wanted to go into here? We have your personal balance sheet for as of February 2021. And
Yep.
then, yeah, do you want to talk about any of these? We also have your mortgage here. We have a lot
So
of information here, so whatever you want to walk us through here, feel free.
so let's talk about the personal P&L a little bit because there's a couple of expenses in here that didn't make the pie chart just because of how, I guess, how tiny they are.
Okay.
And also because I didn't take vacations this past year. So the bottom of the list is usually like I'll share this spreadsheet with people in a different version of it so they can do it themselves. Basically, what I do is I take my paycheck, I take out the taxes just the way that this is going. And then the top half here, after spending cash, those are all paycheck deductions. So medical, dental, vision, 401k, HSA, Roth, um, and it stops there. Those are all paycheck deductions. So if you sum up the annual balance up until, that $6,000 from Roth, that leaves me $44,000 for life, right? Then I decide what I want to do with it. That's where your kind of life begins, and I divide it up at the beginning of the year exactly how you're seeing. So I know I want, almost $20,000 in savings at the end of the year. I know miscellaneous shopping $1,700, and I know my car insurance is going to be about $1,500 for the year. I know my internet bill really cheap. We're on a promo. $15 was my half.
Nice.
I know my electric bill, right? In this situation, I was already living in this place for a year. So I literally took 12 months worth of electric bills and averaged it out. And I was like, okay, I know this is what's going to be reality. So let's put that in. And I know some months it'll be higher or lower.
Yep.
Um, Oil changes aren't a surprise, people. Like, when you're going to hit 5,000 miles, put them in your budget.
Yep.
And the bottom ones, everyone always calls out the Christmas present. I'm like, why wouldn't you budget for Christmas presents? It's the same day every year. You know it's coming. You know how much you spend every year.
Yep.
Um, why don't you just put away $50 a month, and by the time Christmas rolls around, you're not worried about it?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like a surprise expense that, you weren't holding, you weren't planning for. Um, it's
Yeah.
just right there. Totally. Totally.
So that's it. And vacations, the vacation budget is light. if anyone, I mean, you follow me on Instagram, you're like, there's no way he spends $2,600 on vacation. Yes, yes, I do.
Yeah,
Consulting is very nice because you get a lot of points to go places because we're usually traveling for work.
yeah.
So yeah,
Huge
it's another
benefit.
perk of the job. Yeah.
Huge benefit. Huge benefit. I'll say you definitely are 20 bucks a month for going out. That's more, is that for the drinks, or is that cover? Is that everything?
I'm gonna be honest with you. So that line actually was for dates with a previous, like with an ex,
Nice.
and she just didn't really, like to spend money on dates. So we would do other stuff like it was like vacation and whatever. That's tailored down to her expectations, but now it's probably part of the miscellaneous. Like if I'm going out or if I'm taking someone out, like I'm not really looking at it. It's part of the miscellaneous and we're rolling with it.
Gotcha. Totally. Totally. Yeah. And I'd also assume during the pandemic over the last year, it's been probably pretty low anyway. But, I was just like, to keep 20 bucks a month going out is definitely just like, well, damn. That's
Yeah,
like,
no, that was
yeah, 20 bucks, like like, just again, that's just cover most, like, some places. So,
yeah, no, that it was specifically for like dates. So you go like, you know, ice cream or whatever.
right,
Not going
right, right, right. And then we have the personal balance sheet as well, who, if you want to talk through any of this, we kind of, you do have a little gambling line item here with crypto. Um,
out. I think this is what uh, got me out of the gambling. So 2017, I honestly, all of 2017, I wanted to buy some Ripple, and I don't think, and if you remember, 2017 is when everything just kind of like skyrocketed in December.
yeah,
So as soon as that started happening, I was like, well, now's the time to buy. So I'm in at Ripple for a value of 1,200. I think my average price was $1.80. So I'm down there, but I'm not going to let my paper losses turn into real losses. So I'm holding it.
nice. Let me see what the XRP price is. Not to,
It's like 55, 56.
uh, oh no, you're at 60. You're at 60 cents. You got
Oh,
this.
it's up.
Yeah.
Nice. Going back up there. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I can see how that's a little bit scarring. Um, Definitely. But
yeah.
yeah, that, I mean, what a time to buy. Um, and then yeah, so now home stuff, right? So your
Well,
search, you're just sit.
so,
Oh yeah, unless there was something else you want to talk about before we go to that.
so yes, people, look, I no debt. That
Yeah,
that is the thing that I want to point out about this is I am very anti-debt. If I can't afford it in cash, then I can't afford it. Um, the only reason that I have LASIK surgery on there is because it was 0% interest for 2 years. So I could afford it in cash. The money is in the HSA, as you see, it's like 4 grand in there. But in my mind, if I can defer that for 2 years and slowly bleed it as I'm building it up while it's earning returns in the market,
right.
why would I? Why? It's free money. I can make my money work for me.
Because it was zero
Um,
percent, is what you're saying. It was
zero
zero
percent
percent.
interest.
Yeah, interest. Yeah,
So so
totally.
I automated that too. So I have a transfer going from my HSA to auto pay that credit card every month. Um, so I don't even think about it. Like that's just on autopilot. All
Nice,
of this is on autopilot. I don't touch any of it really.
nice. No, that's good.
All of my bills are
It's
auto
great.
paid. It's great. The only thing I do actively monitor is my credit card because I'll put everything on a credit card and then pay it off every 2 weeks.
Every
And if
two
I put
weeks.
that on auto pay, yeah,
Nice.
well, just to stay on top of it. I really,
I
yeah.
asked just because, like, yeah, typically it's just like every month. So yeah, every 2 weeks is just like, yeah. So you have your mortgage and your credit card payment set to pay every 2 weeks to be literally the same as your paycheck. So it's like
Hmm.
literally, cash comes in, cash goes out. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow, very
But
cool.
also if I don't look at it every 2 weeks, then I'll overspend, right? Because then I won't know. But if I look at it in 2 weeks and I'm like, oh, the past 2 weeks I spent 350, I only have another 150 to spend the next 2 weeks. Gotta adjust.
Yeah, fascinating, fascinating.
That's
And
how I balance myself out.
yeah, and then yeah, very cool. Again, this is awesome stuff that you have here, and it's super. Again, you're very easy. Yeah, this is awesome. And again, we have the column for Mint data, but so I'm not sure we want to go into that. But again, just Mint is amazing, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just such
So
a. Oh yeah, I'll click into it too. But yeah, I mean, basically, you're able to really even you're treat yourself. You're really able to categorize all of your expenses. It's a free tool, and it's almost like why not just have this ready so you can at least keep yourself honest with the budget digitally, at least.
yeah. So Mint is awesome. And if you started in December, this is where I told you. So what we were looking at is my budget, right? That's my budgeted breakdown. And then to prove to you that it's real, because I wasn't going to go and recategorize everything on Mint. I
Gotcha.
just
Yeah,
wasn't. Um, I pulled what it was in December. 1,700 is what I spent, and then 115 of that was like I went to go get a massage at Massage Envy. Then in November,
as a Christmas
I
present.
spent 2,600, but there's 750 there because my AAA renewed and there was a Christmas present and other stuff. So I'm still close to the 1,700 range. And then in October, we were lower. We were at like 1,696, and I pulled out cash for who knows what. And if you go back to the personal P&L balance sheet and you do the math, I don't suggest you do it right now. I think my total allocated spending in that kind of, car, whatever, gym, etc., is pretty much like $1,700 a month or 1,750. And some months I'm over, some months I'm under, but it has to balance because of the way that if not, I'm incurring interest on my credit card, right?
Right. Totally.
That's kind of how I balance myself.
Totally. No, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Very
Yeah.
cool. And then yeah, and so all that said, again, you've had your cash stack, you've had a whole bunch of stuff that we've already gone through. We know exactly, your mentality, your how you're uh really digging into your long-term fire movement, right? And then you just got a house, all right? So let's talk about that and see like what that process was like and see how I'll go over here. I'll see like how did that decision come to be and what was that experience like?
Um, oh, okay, so we're at the balance sheet again.
Yeah, well, I just
Is that
stopped
where you're
sharing the
at?
balance sheet to be honest. So I
Oh,
can share the
okay.
balance sheet if you'd like.
No, it's okay. Yeah, we're just chatting. You know better than I do, but
Yeah.
buying a house was oh, I didn't want to. I didn't want to buy a house.
Okay.
Um, but I had to. So,
Twist your arms, Yeah.
I mean, when a deal that good presents itself, you just kind of have to take it. Um, One, I didn't want to buy a house in South Florida because everything's overpriced just
Hmm.
for what it is. It's just overpriced. So I had my my low ball price point and square footage that I would settle for in Florida. And like I said, it was over Christmas break, right? We say Christmas break. My office closes during the last 2 weeks of December, and between Christmas and New Year's, it came up, got it, and I still haven't moved into it. So is that
Yeah.
the process you want to talk about? I
So
still don't live
so
there.
before we get to that, it's more like the process of going shopping rates with lenders and putting offers in on houses. I guess you kind of have a really interesting situation where you kind of got hooked up with a roommate who did you does real estate stuff, or a good friend at least, if what you've mentioned today. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like what I assume that they've been able to help you out with a whole bunch of stuff. Like I had friends help me out a whole bunch when I first did my first thing. Tell me about that process and what was that like with you? Um, having those conversations with the lenders, with the different like banks, and then obviously the back and forths with all the different contingencies coming up.
So, oh my God. All right, that process. One offer, we went back and forth a little bit because the timing was good and it was accepted. So I didn't really have to do the whole multiple places. Look, I knew what I
It was
wanted. I
the
knew what
one
I was willing
house.
to pay for it.
So you
It
got the
was the
only
one
house
house.
that you put the only offer in that you ever did.
Yeah.
Wow, good for you. That's awesome.
I realize that isn't normal now because everyone in this market, but yeah, it was just that's the house that I wanted and that's the house
That's awesome.
that,
Did you have a
yeah,
pre-approval letter before you, like at the beginning?
no, that's where we got some help. So
Okay, yeah,
once we had that, once I knew I wanted the house, Ashley was like, okay, I have a lender that I can recommend you. And that lender was awesome. I sent him over my docs again. This is the period between Christmas and
yeah.
New Year's. So on the 26th, I sent him over all the documents and he was like, okay, looks good. Here's a pre-approval
And
letter. Let's
when you
get
say
this offer in.
docs, let's be really specific, like your life of, like, I guess for you, it's that again, all your bank accounts, all your W-2s, like all
Yeah.
the things, you know. For me, it's just such a hassle. I'm like, all right, 50,000 documents, and here for you.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if you're not organized with them, it's definitely not the easiest thing. But for me, I just had a zip file. I was like, why is this so hard? Like I just, dragged them over and I was like, here you go. He was like, no one's ever responded that quickly. And I was like, sorry.
Yeah, I just have a lot of different
Um,
bank accounts with different banks and different accounts, and it's just a whole thing all the time. So that's my experience. Um, so yeah, totally.
the follow-ups were the worst part. So here we go. So we
Right.
got the pre-approval letter from the recommended lender from my roommate. Got the contract in, great. The rates are really low. It's December, but for some reason, the person that gave me the pre-approval wasn't coming down to kind of like a rate that Wells Fargo was showing. Worked with another person that didn't want to give me like a locked in rate for some reason.
Hmm.
So, I told them, I was like, no, I need a locked in rate for this amount. They send me the paperwork, and it's, if you're not looking closely, it's like one little check mark on the required disclosure that says like locked in rate, and then right
Yep.
below it, like not locked in rate. Um, so it says not locked in, and I emailed them back. I was like, no, sorry, I need a locked in rate. Bye. But I took that offer to Wells Fargo, which is actually lower than the rate that Wells Fargo was offering, and I was like, hey, yo, can you guys match this? Even though it's not locked in, Wells Fargo does rate match, and they said, yeah. So because it was the same day, they matched it, 2.75% interest rate,
Beautiful.
um, cheaper than inflation. I mean, it's free money at this point, I think.
Yep.
So that was the negotiation process, and I'm talking about it like really chill now. I was not chill about this during it,
Yeah.
uh, at
Yeah,
all.
I mean, it's a lot of back and forth, right? I mean, how many ultimate, like, so in total you had at least three different lenders you were talking to. The person that gave you the pre-approval letter, you have the Wells Fargo, which is your main primary bank, and then you had a third one. Yeah, five. You're muted on
So
my end.
those are the
Yeah,
three.
yeah. Okay.
Those are the three that I ended up talking to.
Okay.
But then I
Five.
also looked at like Rocket Mortgage, and then I think like
Yeah.
another one of those like the E firms that we're looking at. So
Quicken
five,
or something. Yeah.
yeah. And then something funny happened. So on top of that, those five, I checked with a sixth. So one of my friends posts their like National Mortgage Lending Service ID and like a bunch of information about just being a mortgage broker, a loan officer. So I hit her up and we started going through the process with her. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, wait, like my firm already ran your credit. Turns out she's working at the same firm that my roommate recommended the other person to work with. So I didn't even know who I was working with at one point.
Nice.
Um, but I was trying everything I could to get that best rate. I had 2.75 in mind and I wasn't going to accept anything higher.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you definitely timed it really well. Right now, things are going back up a little bit at least. I don't know what it is today, what people would be getting today, but yeah, you killed it. And again, five lenders, like definitely. Um, I think it's probably recommended to at least get three. Um,
Mhm.
and so five is definitely a solid amount. But again, you have to have all your papers ready to go, submit the same process with all of them, and then it's like, you know, yeah, you have try to build up good rapport with the people who you're talking to because ultimately they can then help you out and say, look, like, oh, even if it's just them saying that they're trying to give you a favor or like you do you a favor, it's just like you want them to try to vouch for you at the rest of their office, right? And so there's that kind of time on the phone. I spent like an hour with this lady on the phone previously, and ultimately she like couldn't help me, but it was like, hey, next time around, like we'll keep in touch. And it was just like still like a good
Uh,
conversation, but it was definitely just like a lot of time that was spent. um but yeah, it's a totally a process. And then with the home itself, going through the inspections and going through the I assume you had it like different contingencies going on with the actual purchase. But what was that process like? Did you have to negotiate at all with the price at that point too?
it wasn't gonna happen. So I negotiated from asking price down like $5,000. So I think they were asking, or maybe like 4,000. They were asking for 250, and I got it at 245. Um, it is the lowest price sale in the community in the past 6 months.
Nice.
And we went to go do the inspection, and we asked, right? There's no harm in asking. The AC unit came back as just bad, and the water heater was bad. So we asked, seeing what could happen, and the previous owner said, "I'll change the water heater for you, but I'm not doing anything else."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, fair, thank you."
Yeah, it's something. It's something at
um,
that point.
yeah. So I knew I would have these issues, but to me, if you're buying a house, you're gonna have to do this stuff at some point anyway.
Yep.
Might as well be right when you move in, because that way you know who did the AC, you know what you're getting, you know what is being done, and you know that you have 10 years on it.
Yep.
So why not?
Totally. Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then again, the vision for the house is long term, right? It's not like you're moving anywhere anytime soon to like after this. And even if you go do like you're looking to hold long term. And tell me more of like from the decision to make the purchase, which was just because again you had that stack of cash that you're ready to do something with, to the long term vision for the house. Like uh what do you see this manifesting into ultimately as far as like your real estate endeavors? And have you already seen any appreciation on the value of the property in this crazy market? Like, is it kind of cool to see Zillow at this point, or you kind of is it the opposite? You know?
I think Zillow does weird stuff. I think you told me about this. Zillow knows kind of like what the sale price is.
Yeah,
So, but before it was posted, Zillow's estimate was like 260, which is way over what I paid for it. And then now they're like, oh no, it's only worth 247 because they know what it sold for.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so
yeah,
so
totally.
that's been kind of wild. But my dream is to have what you have one day.
With
um,
the
yeah, just a place to rent out, passive income.
yeah, do you plan to house hack this at all? Do you have any vision
Yes.
to, yeah, so tell me more about that and maybe define house hacking in your words for the viewers and people listening.
Yeah, so I mean, house hacking, I'm going to pay a mortgage and take on a roommate, right? Because why not? I think the idea originally was to buy like a multi-family unit, and that way you can have some separation and kind of house hack it that way. Multi-families in South Florida, your money's better put in the stock market over the long term. So it's not, I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
But it's a three-bedroom house. I can take on a roommate, have an office. If they have a dog, they can have a dog, plenty of space, and that basically keeps my expenses right where the pie chart was.
yeah,
Under $1,000 in Fort Lauderdale. This is how you do it.
beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, man. And yeah, that's beautiful. And then do you have any preconceived idea of like how long you're going to be living there yourself? Is this like a forever home kind of
I
thing, or
think
is this
break
good?
even period.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's why I asked.
Definitely not a
Totally.
forever home.
Totally.
um, definitely not a forever home, but I think my break even period's about 5 to 6 years, so at least that long. Um, because if not, I mean, I would have just been better off renting, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The average loan, I think, breaks even around then too, right? That's usually the
Mhm.
kind of the thing. Totally. And then, yeah. And then with, is there any other conversation you want to have, like around real estate and these discussions right now? Is there anything that we haven't discussed so far that, before I move on, that you wanted to talk more about?
Never
No.
pay contractors a deposit in cash. That's just my only advice
Do
I
do you
have
do you
for
want to talk
anyone
about that
out
a
there
little bit more?
listening.
Because I wasn't gonna like dive deep into that just because, it's not. Sorry to laugh, but I mean, for everybody watching, I mean, there's, I mean, yeah, it's kind of unfiltered here if you want the like again, sometimes when you're renovating or doing work on a house, like again, there's some conversations, there's always that back and forth. And the good thing is, though, I will say, right, like you're there, like you're able to be, you know, to understand who you're speaking with in person, physically, boots on the ground. This is what's going on, and this work is
uh,
shitty, or this work is, good enough. And yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about that, I'll definitely leave that up to you. To what level?
I'm I could talk about it forever. I'll just look. If you don't know what you're doing in a renovation, at least look up a way to inspect it, because inspecting the job is easier than doing it yourself. So
Hmm.
that's step one. I'll give you an example. I had tile installed. I wanted to know if the guy was doing a good job. YouTube said bounce a golf ball on it. It shouldn't sound hollow. If it does, get help fast. I go to my house, tile's getting installed. I drop the golf ball. It sounds like I hit a hollow log. Oh crap. So that was lesson number one, is learn how to inspect jobs. Then the tile situation turned into me being desperate to get floors installed. So then we can get, like the appliances delivered, and just keep the process moving. In which case, someone came in, they collected a deposit from me. It was through like Home Advisor or Angie's List. The app wasn't taking the payment because I intended to pay it with credit card. Next thing I know, they never show back up again, and I'm out $800. We're going through arbitration about it. The guy still is pretty, active with the situation. $800 is gone. I have no recourse. Angie's List isn't going to give it to me, or Home Advisor isn't going to give it to me. Should have paid in credit. The other thing, if you're going to do floors, just make sure you have plans to paint the house after, or you have some sort of cleaning budget, because there's dust on everything, on every nook and cranny. Um, and the last thing I'll say is get used to going to Home Depot. Home Depot is your friend.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to do simple things, just like put up fans in the rooms, and like changed one flush light to another flush light. Turns out you don't know when you open that flush light whether or not the right size screw was used for the fan that you're going to be putting in there. And I got lucky, but you don't know if the electrical box can even hold a fan. There's different types. I didn't know any of this. No one ever explained it. You don't learn it anywhere. It's the school of hard knocks, and that's it.
I applaud you for your experiences that you've been going through, especially because you're also this anti-budget person that is very, risk averse in a sense where, you know, it's good that you do save this what you saved, right? To have that cash stack that I assume has been coming in super handy for exactly this type of conversation. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's definitely where it comes in, um, where it comes into play. And then yeah, I think one of my, again, I'll also pause. We're coming towards like the last final stretch here, but if anybody on the internet has any questions as we're live, feel free to type it in the chat. Feel free to, interact as much as you or as little as you guys want. But I appreciate you guys watching. We've had a steady, good group of people watching along. But I hope you guys are finding this somewhat interesting and valuable. So again, feel free to engage as much or as little as you want. Feel free to like, share, whatever you guys want to do. So I also wanted to kind of ask a little bit more about your interest in the fire movement. Obviously, when we first started talking, this is definitely something that was top of mind for you and something that I think you're definitely working towards. And I think we mentioned it a little bit through this, discussion already a couple, maybe a couple times. But really, tell me more about that and your perspective and how what you're doing is ultimately getting you to that goal.
So, financial independence, retire early. Fire movement is, I don't know. I feel, and I was also telling someone this before as well. I feel like one, again, not tone deaf, not necessarily possible to this level for everyone. I realize that not everyone can save 50% of their income.
Hmm.
Um, so, but if you can, right, I'm talking about people who can do it, then why not? I think this is something along the lines of making a change in a paradigm of how people see money. And instead of seeing spending and consuming as a way to live or a reason to live, why not see spending and consuming as a way to support the life that you want to live, right? So I really I don't value Lambos. I don't own a lot of stuff. All of the stuff that I own, absent my car, currently fits in my 10-foot by 10-foot room that I rent with my roommate. Um, I have bought furniture for the house and stuff like that, but I'm telling you, in terms of like trinkets and just buying a billion pairs of shoes and things like that, I don't do it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just kind of who I am as a person. Doesn't mean I don't spend money. Don't get me wrong. Um, I think like my Wi-Fi router cost like $300 or $400, but that's because I needed a good Wi-Fi router, right? I bought what
Right.
I needed.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I'm just not spending money in a way that I don't need
Totally.
to
Totally.
allow me to do that forever.
Totally. Totally. And yeah, I subscribe a little bit to that mantra, and I know I think do people, you know, regarding clothes, right? I'm not sure if you get this input a lot, but I don't know if you remember, I had my Birkenstocks in college, my Birks, my sandals I used to wear everywhere. And like
Yep.
I still get comments about if I still have those, I mean it's definitely something that, I will continue to wear stuff until they legitimately probably fall off them, like not all of them, but a good amount of the things. But no, I think that that's a huge, you know, thing, like a mental block that I think a lot of people probably have a very personal relationship with, as far as just again that you have the miscellaneous stuff built into your budget, as we've talked about. You have opportunities that if you did want to splurge, right? I mean, you do have the opportunity, but it's like, are you're from what it sounds like, you're just very much prioritizing the stuff that you want and need, to make your uh the I forgot the name of the professor, but you want to increase your utils as much as possible. I forgot Mark.
Richard Lutz.
Yeah, let's and
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, it's definitely, you want to be able to be as happy as you can with the stuff that you have without having too much, right? And is with the fire movement,
Yeah.
that have you gotten involved with different groups and people, like a community online too, or are you just kind of watching and hearing what other people are talking about? peripherally.
Watch and hear communities online, Reddit, a lot of Reddit's about personal finance or, lean fire or fat fire or coast
Mm,
fire. There's different ways to do it. So I know I made the comment about not being tone deaf, but there's like barista fire, right? Like people who make minimum wage and want to be financially independent. And what you'll see them doing is move out to the middle of Alabama and buy like a manufactured home and live in it and be happy. And that's what they want to do. Or they buy an RV and they hop around just doing that. There's a lot of ways that you can be financially independent. But the thing is that you have to decide what you want and when you want it, right? You just, it seems like by the numbers, by the amount of debt people have and what people have, at least in Miami, they want what they want or they want what they think other people think they should want and they want it now, right? Like those are their priorities. I just flip them. I
hmm,
want what I want. I don't care what other people are telling me to want. And
hmm.
I want it when I can afford it in cash.
Right,
Like, that's
right.
it. And again, I do spend money. Like I think I have a newer phone. It's the Samsung like 20 or whatever. Like I I'm not hesitant at spending money on stuff, but it just has to be stuff that I want. Like I like nice technology. I like a nice phone. My laptop is the one from college. It's 10 years old. I don't need a new laptop.
Yeah.
Um, I'm on my phone more all the time,
Do you not
and
have
I'm
a
not buying a new laptop.
do you have a laptop through work?
Yeah,
Separate. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Totally. Totally. No. Yeah, I agree, and I think you touched on a couple different things, but on a surface level, fire as like a whole is like an umbrella, and then you have the different types of fire. The retiring early you can get, right? There's like again like the fat fire,
yeah.
which is just like you're like sitting pretty, and there's like I haven't heard of the barista fire, but I mean I assume we can all understand what that means, and again be a barista and be able to retire early on a barista's pay. Um,
Mhm.
and I think it's very fascinating. Do you have any specific Reddit or subreddit threads that you usually look at?
Personal finance, um, like just our personal finance, lean fire, because if lean fire and barista fire are related but not similar, I mean, sorry, related but not identical. So LEANFIRE, so it's lean fire. I used to think it was learn fire.
Nice.
Those people are very, very frugal.
Mm,
And if you take their approach and scale it up to your salary, you can probably live very comfortably, um,
right.
kind of following their approaches. But after that, like I said, I spent really looking into personal finance for like a year, and then once you know where your money is going, you know kind of the train tracks that you're on and the station that you're heading to, it kind of takes care of itself, and you need to go find something else to do.
Right.
Like,
Right. 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 And yeah, beautiful. And I appreciate you talking about that. That's so fire I think it's been around for a while, but obviously it's gained a lot of traction the last few years and it's cool to see, more and more people talking about it, whether or not they are following any of those principles or not. It's kind of cool to hear and listen again and speak with people who are, you know, looking and following in that mantra, generally speaking. Um, but yeah, so I have uh, some other
yeah,
questions as well.
100%.
Yeah, with you know, do you have any recollection going back to when you were younger about your first memories around investing and what that was like?
Yeah, let me just warn you, my internet connection's unstable apparently, so if I
Yeah,
might leave you,
it's all good. Yeah,
just know that's why. But investing for me when I was little, it was something that rich people would talk about.
hmm,
Oh, I got money in the stock market, or my broker made me broker, or a Monopoly card, and watching the ticker go up and down on the, evening news. It wasn't something that I had any cogent aspect of. It wasn't anything that I understood.
yeah,
I just I just knew that if you put money in this market, it'll give you more back.
Right.
That's it. That's all I
Interesting.
knew.
Do you know like how old like that those realizations, those memories were? Like how old you were?
It had to have been, between kindergarten and fifth grade because of the house that I lived in and where I remember kind of seeing these things. So no older than like 12, 11.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably around the same time it sounds like that, you've been observing people on their summer vacations and summer experiences, it sounds like. And
Pretty much.
yeah. And then regarding what you're doing today then, is it, have you had any major that we mentioned some of the Reddit conversations around the fire and the personal finance Reddit threads, but what was any of your, like, your first influences that got you started into what you're doing now? Was there any specific person, a book, or something that inspired you?
So no necessary book or direct inspiration. David, to leave it back, I just wanted to stop being poor.
Yeah,
Like, in all honesty, like that's my motivation. It was like I grew up in that environment. I never want to be in that environment again. So I'm gonna do what I can to make sure that I'm not overexerting myself or living on credit or buying things I can't afford. Like if I can't afford it, too bad, so sad. That's it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But after that though, once it's like I want to stop being poor, then the question is, well, how do you do it? Pretty sure I read that article. Be born into it, marry into it, or save your way into it.
right, right,
And then what's the best way to save? And then you start going down the rabbit hole. And I think the first year I started working, one of my coworkers told me about the Afford Anything podcast after I had already like started doing the personal finance stuff and going for fire movement. And 𝗿𝗲𝗹, her mantra is great. You can afford anything, but you can't afford everything,
hmm,
right? And that's true. Like, if you want to own a 100-foot yacht, David, you can do it, but you just won't be able to afford anything else or
right,
gas to put in the tank or
hmm,
whatever else. Well, I don't know your life. Maybe you could afford a 100-foot yacht and then buy another. I don't. But I'm just saying, like, the
right.
proverbial you.
No, I got you. I got you. Totally. Totally makes sense too, man. Um, yeah, fascinating. Appreciate you sharing, obviously. And then, one of the last final questions before you go to cherry on top question is, do you have any like favorite index funds that you have put your stuff into outside of the target one that we spoke about? I think you mentioned one earlier, but yeah, do you have
Yeah.
any other favorite stocks or index funds?
BTSAX. That's it. I think there's all like BTAIX, which is the other one. They're both basically the same thing, but one of them I think you have to have like a minimum of 10 grand invested in it, and the other one you can start with 1,000 or $3,000.
Yeah, cool. And both
So
those are Vanguard funds that are in your Vanguard portfolio.
and yes, Vanguard funds. Stick to Vanguard. The Fidelity funds are pretty competitive now too.
How often do you speak with the people who are managing the like your contact, like your Fidelity or Vanguard people? Do you ever?
Never. I called them to open my account and validate my identity, and I've never talked to them again.
Nice, nice,
It's
nice.
great.
Yeah. Nice. And then yeah, I think before is there anything specific, well, I'll save that last, but yeah, is your guilty pleasure. What is your guilty pleasure?
Um,
We've spent this
so where
whole
I
like
will,
2 hours talking about, real detailed finances conversations. And yeah, so sorry to cut you off, but yeah, what is your guilty
no.
pleasure?
I mean, if I had one, it would be travel, music festivals, and if I'm doing one of those two things or I'm doing them together, I'm traveling to a music festival. There's no budget. Like the credit card is doing what the credit card's doing. I'm getting what I'm wanting, and if the savings rate gets hit a little bit that year, that's fine. But again, what I truly want isn't diamonds and gold plated Beats headphones. Like it might mean that
Right.
I went out for coffee 10 times and got a really nice steak dinner at like Ruth Chris, something not anything insane. So it's never too bad afterwards. It just means the next vacation has less budget or whatever it means, you know?
Right. Right. Those gold-plated Beats headphones, though, they're tempting. No, and you said you've traveled quite a bit all over the places. Do you have any favorite places or favorite travel experiences that you've had?
Go to Japan and do the go-karting in the streets of Japan. I feel like that is just something I
Did you
would
do
want
it
to do again
dressed?
and again.
Did you do it dressed as Mario and Luigi and all the characters? You dressed up for it? Yes. I mean, again, I see the Zelda hat,
So,
right? I mean, did
so,
you get into character here?
so it was Pikachu. I think Mario sued them, so Pokemon
Uh,
hadn't yet. So I was in a Pikachu onesie. The picture's somewhere.
nice. Awesome. Nice. And
Yeah.
cool. And then is there something else that you're just really excited about that you want to share or talk about before we start wrapping it up here?
I mean, in a nutshell, if I had to give someone all of this advice summarized, um, automate as much as possible, save as much as you can to meet your goals, right? I think if you're college educated and you're making mid 50,000 and you're not living in somewhere crazy expensive like San Francisco, New York, LA, Chicago, you can reach your financial goals, and the difference between how much you save and how much you spend is your speed limit, right? So what is your financial goal and how fast do you want to get there? The answer is how much are you spending on stuff you don't need? And the last one is make this your own journey. Figure out where your money is going is step one. So maybe you don't even know where your money is going. That's where these tools like Mint or Personal Capital, I think is called the
Yep.
other one, come into play. So you can link up all your financial accounts. Don't worry, Mint is owned by Intuit, the people that do TurboTax. So if you trust TurboTax, you trust Mint. Um, and they link up all your financial accounts and it'll literally tell you how much you're spending on coffee. If you just graduated high school or graduated college, go see how much you're spending on alcohol. Because I remember doing that after I graduated, and that's kind of what kicked me into shape. I was like, oh no, we need to make a change and
Yeah.
fast.
In Gainesville, there's Grogs, like the $2 doubles,
Yeah,
even with that.
that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I appreciate you brought up again personal capital and Mint. Are those your primary, like, do you have any other tools or apps that you use that help track your spending and finances?
Let me check the apps. I have a finance folder on my phone.
Nice.
So I use Mint, just all the banking apps, and then all of my bank accounts. So high yield savings account and Mint are two good tools. And if I had to shout out one more account, a Charles Schwab investor checking account is a really good account to have in your arsenal, and I'll tell you why. One, you can invest with it if you want to. Two, you don't have to invest with it if you don't want to, you know. And the checking account refunds you ATM fees anywhere in the world, which is awesome.
Yeah, totally.
And there's no international fees. So that's my travel account. So when I'm going to go travel somewhere, I throw cash in there, I get to the location that I'm in, I pull money out of the ATM, it converts me at the market rate at that moment where I'm pulling out the cash. And if that ATM charges me like $15 or whatever it is at the airport, I get that back.
Wow, that's
So
awesome. And that's the is the, do you have to have like a Charles Schwab credit or like debit card for that as well, or is it just you link up whatever other?
well,
Yeah,
so when you open that account, you actually open two accounts. You open the investor checking account and the regular checking account. And I think there might even be a savings account in there. I don't know. But they use the checking account to fund your investor account. So you just use the checking account portion, and the debit card is linked to the checking account.
gotcha. And
So it's great.
well, yeah, and Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I think that's beautiful, man. It sounds great. I appreciate you joining. I think that's been we've been talking now for a little bit over 2 hours, and I appreciate your time. It didn't it's definitely been a minute, but it definitely 2 hours is a long time, so I appreciate you sticking with me for this amount of time, and I think we covered a lot of ground, man. Covered a lot of ground in this. So, um, Becca just commented, thanks for all the great info. You're an inspiration.
Oh
I
my gosh.
agree. I agree.
Thanks for watching.
Way to stick with us for 2 hours. I really appreciate that, right? Yeah, really round
That's
of
support.
applause.
That's my best friend. That's the support
That
I need
that's
in
the
my life.
support that is 100%, 100%. And yeah, and again, this is our first episode. So again, thanks Lewis for taking your risk with me with with this whole conversation and how it was going to go. You are the example now for hopefully many more people and many more episodes to come, and hopefully you've inspired a good group of people to continue down this fire movement path and or also potentially take their personal finances more seriously. And I
No,
don't, yeah, we're gonna say,
you inspire me. The reason I joined is because you actually you're out there doing the hard work. You put together the stream, you did all of the graphics and the design and everything. And I've had this idea of doing what you're doing, but I'm just happy to be part of it and not having to do all the hard work. So thank you for creating the platform.
yeah, I appreciate that. You're oh stop it, I'm blushing kind of thing. No, but no, thanks man. I really do appreciate it. I hope it looks good and Becca, Tim, you guys can tell me if it, if you guys have any feedback of the visuals here. And if people are going to be watching this hopefully on YouTube later and if I cut it up and rip the audio for podcast stuff, feel free to watch it on the other platforms or listen however you guys want. And but yeah, I think this is it's been a great episode. Wrapping up. I don't have any real like sign off. The background looks great. Thank you, Becca. Appreciate that. Did it myself. Um, but yeah, I don't have any. This is the first. I was thinking, it's like, do I want to like start something that's it? But I think moving forward, I might be trying to figure out what other things I can continue to uh say at the beginning or the end to make it more of like a formalized thing. But hey, again, were you gonna say you look
So
like you're about to say something?
yeah, I think I have one for you. I mean, I was going to use it for this project that never got off the ground, but
Yeah.
it might get off the ground. I think for me, time is money. You don't have any to waste. Whatever you're trying to start doing it, start now.
Yep.
Just go. Get
Totally.
it done.
Totally.
No
Yeah.
excuses. You can open all of these accounts right now. You
Yep.
can you can go to charlesschwab.com, you put in your information, they will mail you a card in 2 seconds.
Love
Go
that.
do it. No
Love that.
excuses.
Love that. No excuses. Time is money. Do it now. And yeah, hopefully that's motivational. I think I'm also going to start implementing some. You can get tax benefits. We didn't even touch on, again, a lot of other tax opportunities. That's for other people, maybe other conversations. Maybe if you want to come back for another episode. But if people want to donate to charity, I might be starting to fundraise for Hopping for a Cure through these things. And every episode, I can talk about how much money we've raised for Hopping for a Cure and go from there. I think that'd be kind of cool to reflect on.
Nice.
But I think that'll be another episode. We'll see. But for now, I'll sign off. Thank you again, Lewis. How, if people want to get in touch with you, obviously we did say in our intro and in the descriptions here that you are in fact single. So if any ladies wanted to hop in your DMs and send you a message, how could they find you? And is there anything else you'd like to plug as well?
At Franco 100 on Instagram. That's probably the only place I'll respond. LinkedIn might be another place that
So
I'll
that it's
respond, and those are the two places I hang out. Anything else to plug? Nah, go travel. Go tell your mom that you love her. You never know. Time is short. Just do it. The difference between a thought and getting something done is action. So take action every day.
Love that. Love that, man. Well, thank you again so much for joining me. Thank you, everybody who's watched this live episode of the David Nassau Show, as it's formally, I guess, called at this point. Because again, very creative, very original here. And I think my sign off will be something along the lines of keep doing big things. So, uh, thank you guys. Have a good one.